The woman walked through the blast doors as if passing through a beaded curtain. She did not belong. The air in Aegis Command was recycled, chilled, and carried the metallic scent of contained power. Men in starched uniforms moved with crisp purpose, their boots echoing on the polished concrete. Her soft-soled shoes made no sound. Her name was Alara Vance, but the name on her temporary clearance badge was a sterile, forgettable placeholder. The guards at the checkpoint had scanned it, their eyes glazing over her civilian attire, a simple gray tunic and dark trousers, before waving her through with the indifferent flick of a wrist reserved for maintenance staff or low-level contractors. She was assigned a terminal in a forgotten corner, a digital Siberia where obsolete data streams went to die. The chair wobbled. No one spoke to her. She was a ghost before she even sat down. General Madsen did not like ghosts in his machine. He ran Aegis with the unyielding precision of a man who believed protocol was the wall that held back chaos. He summoned her to his central command pulpit, a raised platform overlooking the entire operations floor. He held her file, a single thin sheet of paper, between a thumb and forefinger, as if it were contaminated. Vance, he said, the name a dismissal in itself. Civilian consultant. Systems integrity. His eyes, the color of chipped slate, swept over her. My people are the best. They are trained for every contingency. What, precisely, do you believe you can offer them? She met his gaze, her expression unreadable. She knew what he saw. A woman past her prime, soft where his men were hard, quiet where they were loud. I'm here to observe, she said, her voice even and low, a stark contrast to the clipped cadence of the room. Madsen's lip curled. Observe. Stay out of the way. Do not touch any critical systems. My officers handle the launch hardware. This is not a simulation, consultant. This is the tip of the spear. He turned away, the conversation over. The dismissal was absolute. He had placed her in a box labeled irrelevant and closed the lid. Alara returned to her corner. She did not touch her keyboard. She watched. Her focus was not on the frantic ballet of uniformed personnel, but on the silent language of the network. She saw the minute lag in the data transfer from satellite feed Delta, the almost imperceptible jitter in the power core's output diagnostics. These were the compound fractures hiding beneath a smooth surface. Her gaze settled on Cerberus, the primary launch interface console. It was the heart of Aegis, a sleek, black altar of immense power. Young, sharp-jawed lieutenants operated it with a swaggering confidence she recognized. It was the confidence of those who had only ever read the manual, who had never felt the machine's soul shudder under true pressure. They did not see the ghost in its code, a faint diagnostic anomaly that flickered on a subscreen for less than a second every 17 minutes. She saw it. On the inside of her wrist, hidden by her sleeve, was a faint tattoo of 3 stars arranged in a tight, triangular pattern. It was a map, a key, and a memory. The pressure came not as a wave, but as a spike. A Priority 1 alert flashed across the main screen, bathing the room in crimson light. A rogue state had broken containment. Their silos were hot. An enemy launch was imminent. Status. Madsen's voice was a whip crack. The order came down from the highest authority. Prepare a preemptive counterstrike. The room's controlled hum sharpened into a high-strung shriek of activity. The lieutenants at the Cerberus console moved with practiced speed, their fingers flying across the touchscreens. They initiated the sequence. Then it happened. A cascade of error codes scrolled down the main display. The launch sequence froze. What is it? Madsen barked. Sir, it's a handshake failure, one of the lieutenants said, his voice tight with rising panic. The system is locked. We're firewalled from our own assets. They scrambled, inputting override codes that the system simply spat back at them. The machine, their ultimate weapon, had become their cage. The air thickened with the acrid smell of failure. In the ensuing chaos, Alara stood. She moved with a calm that was unnerving, a pocket of silence in the storm. She walked directly toward the Cerberus console. An armed guard stepped forward to block her path, hand on his sidearm. Stand down, Madsen ordered, his voice strained. He was a man drowning, and she was the only one who had not yet gone under. He didn't know why, but he gave the order. Alara reached the console. The young officers backed away, their faces a mixture of resentment and desperation. She ignored them. Her hands moved over the interface, but not on the primary screen. She pulled up a raw command line, a black void that none of them knew how to access. Her fingers began to move, not typing so much as composing. The commands she entered were not in any manual. They were elegant, archaic, a forgotten dialect. She was not fixing the system. She was speaking to it, reminding it of its true name. The red error messages vanished. The system status light flipped from red to a solid, healthy blue. A collective, unconscious sigh swept through the room. The silence that followed was different. It was not the silence of panic, but of awe. Those commands, the lead lieutenant whispered, staring at the screen's history log. They're not standard protocol. Their ghost overrides an older tech sergeant. His face pale, looked from the screen to Alara. A flicker of dawning recognition crossed his face. Legacy architecture, he breathed. From the initial build, only the architect would have that level of access. A name, spoken like a half-remembered prayer from the back of the room, cut through the tension. Nyx, it hung in the air, a piece of mythology suddenly made real. The younger officers looked confused, but the veterans, the ones who had been around for decades, froze. They knew the name. Nyx was not a person. It was a legend, the call sign of the phantom engineer who had built their unbreakable systems and then disappeared. The enemy launch was still a reality. The screen showed their missiles clearing the silos. The immediate crisis was averted, but the ultimate threat was now airborne. Madsen strode toward Alara. His entire demeanor changed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a raw, desperate respect. He did not issue an order. He made a request. "Can you launch our birds?" His voice was low, for her alone. "Can you guarantee the strike?" It was the second trial, the true test. Fixing the machine was one thing. Wielding it as a weapon under fire was another. Alara did not answer with words. She simply gave one short nod. She turned back to the console, her ownership of it now total. Her hands moved with an intimate and terrifying grace, her connection to the machine seamless. She was no longer a consultant. She was the conductor, and Cerberus was her orchestra. As Alara's fingers orchestrated the complex targeting and launch solutions, a frantic aide rushed to Madsen's side, holding out a tablet. A new file had been unlocked by an emergency directive from the Joint Chiefs. Madsen took it, his eyes scanning the text. The blood drained from his face. The file was short, but its weight was immense. Subject, Alara Vance. Call sign, Nyx. Lead architect, Aegis Command Core and Cerberus Launch System. Sole survivor, Project Chimera. He looked up from the tablet at the woman at the console. The quiet civilian. The ghost. She was the system's creator, its first and only true master. The legends were not legends. They were redacted history. In that moment, General Madsen understood that his authority in this room had always been an illusion. He had been a caretaker of a temple he never knew was sacred, and he had just tried to evict its goddess. The counter-missiles launched. On the main screen, elegant blue vectors arched across the globe to meet the angry red lines of the enemy. The intercepts were perfect. The threat was neutralized. A wave of relief and muffled cheers rippled through the room. Alara stepped back from the console, her work finished. She straightened her sleeve, the motion simple, final. Every eye was on her. The room fell silent again, but this time it was a silence of reverence. General Madsen walked toward her, stopping a respectful 2 paces away. He did not offer a handshake or a word of thanks. He simply stood straight, brought his heels together with a sharp crack, and rendered a slow, perfect salute. In response, every single uniformed man and woman in Aegis Command snapped to attention, their salutes a silent, thunderous chorus of respect. Alara looked at Madsen, her gaze holding his for a long moment. She gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. It was enough. She turned and walked away, her soft shoes once again silent on the floor. She did not look back. As she passed the Cerberus console, her fingers brushed lightly against its cool, metal frame, a final, private farewell between old partners. The blast doors hissed open, and she disappeared through them, leaving behind a room full of people who had just witnessed a myth breathe. The last thing anyone saw was the faint 3-star tattoo on her wrist as she pushed her sleeve back into place. The console hummed behind them, perfectly stable, its screens reflecting the empty space where its master had stood. Her strength had never been in the power she displayed, but in the silent, unseen foundation she had built, ready to hold the world together when it threatened to break.